Good evening, everybody. Explosive developments today, 6 days until the election, and dramatic new details revealed about the FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton's email scandal today. We'll have our top story for you here in just moments. All of this comes as Donald Trump is gaining against Hillary Clinton in the most critical battleground states, according to the Real Clear Politics electoral map. Trump's path to 270 electoral votes is now wide open. Clinton's lead in the Real Clear Politics electoral vote has narrowed to 46 electoral votes. Just last week, she had a 126 vote advantage. It is clear voters are fed up with the mounting evidence of corruption in the Clinton cartel. That's not the only troubling aspect of what is supposed to be an independent and impartial and transparent investigation. A new WikiLeaks email shows Assistant Attorney General Peter Kadzik, who is involved in the Justice Department investigation at its very center, in fact, tipped off John Podesta and the Clinton campaign about actions taken by the Justice Department last year. Donald Trump, campaigning in the battleground state of Florida today, said it is time to put an end to all the Clinton corruption.
Out today, WikiLeaks just came out with a new one, that a rigged system with more collusion, possibly illegal, between the Department of Justice, the Clinton campaign, and the State Department. You saw that. The emails show that the Assistant Attorney General, who's involved in the investigation, has been feeding information directly to John Podesta and the Clinton campaign. She shouldn't be allowed to run.
Chance of drain the swamp and drain the swamp is exactly what Trump promises to do. Among my guests here tonight, former Reagan White House political director Ed Rollins, former UN ambassador John Bolton, also with me tonight, political law attorney, Republican leader Charlie Spies, member of the RNC Rules Committee, Republican leader Randy Evans. A lot to talk about, including new concerns about voter fraud in Florida. The state's Republican Party now threatens a lawsuit after election officials in Florida opened tens of thousands of mailed-in ballots before they were officially verified. We'll have that story for you and much more on the maneuvers, particularly the legal maneuvers, now taking place in federal court. Our top story, breaking new developments in the FBI investigation into the Clinton email scandal and the Clinton Foundation scandal. Fox News has learned from two separate FBI sources with intimate knowledge of the FBI investigation. Those sources telling our colleague, Bret Baier, that President Obama has, quote, painted himself into a corner with his statement to 60 Minutes last October, in which he said the Clinton email scandal was not a national security issue. FBI sources tell Fox tonight the exact opposite is true. America's security was in danger. We're also learning tonight that as a result of the immunity deals, limited immunity deals with top Clinton aides, including Cheryl Mills and Heather Samuelson, the Justice Department agreed that the FBI would destroy their laptops after a, quote, narrow review, end quote. Now, we are assured, we're told, that those laptops were in fact not destroyed and have been retained by the FBI. They're being examined by the FBI right now in Washington, D.C. The email investigation is being run by the FBI's National Security Division. They are also going through Anthony Weiner's laptop, and they have found new emails from Hillary Clinton's private server, and they are not duplicates of ones seen before. Sources say that we will find out soon whether any of those new emails contain classified information, and there is another piece of news tonight. Investigators are now 99% sure that up to 5 foreign intelligence agencies were able to hack into the Clinton email server. The FBI director had said most recently that it was only a possibility. Now we're finding out it was all but a certainty. Joining me now, Great America PAC strategist, former Reagan White House political director, Fox News contributor, Ed Rollins. Ed, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
These are buster revelations.
Having spent a big portion of my life in government and the White House and what have you, I'm just appalled by all this. I mean, this reminds me so much of the Nixon administration, which I was a part of. This is even worse. I mean, this is the most important investigation here was the Clinton Foundation, and all these stories that come forth now clearly show that the FBI was handicapped. And I think to a certain extent they've done as there are good people there who tried to do the right thing and are still trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, but we would not know this, oddly enough,
right,
if it were not for WikiLeaks and for the good agents of the FBI who are standing tall.
I agree totally, and they're putting their careers at risk, and they believe in justice, and they believe that something is wrong here, and they're going to pursue it right to the bitter end. I'm just appalled by it. Every time I read something about this, I keep thinking it's going to get worse, and it does get worse.
It does get worse. It got measurably worse today. And let's turn to the idea that Loretta Lynch, as Attorney General, came from the Eastern District of New York, that court, and we find out the prosecutors in that court have been slowing the investigation. In fact, beyond slowing it, they've put up immense hurdles. They've all but stopped investigation.
I found it amazing today, the whole concept of her meeting President Clinton. People, nowhere in those stories was it that he had originally appointed her as that U.S. attorney to that Eastern Division, which has obviously been a very important one, and reappointed her. So there was a friendship there. It was way beyond just the political patronage.
To the point that it is making here, to which I referred earlier, this means that because she was running that office, that most of the agents, certainly the top assistant attorneys, U.S. attorneys, are all appointed by her.
Absolutely, no question about it.
And it puts up the proposition that maybe that's the reason, in part, that Hillary's campaign headquarters are in Brooklyn.
Well, the way they move forward as an assistant, I was on the judicial selection panel when I was in the White House with President Reagan, how an assistant prosecutor moves up in the system, becomes a U.S. attorney, what have you, is they're very loyal to their bosses. And obviously, she's now the attorney general. So there's anybody in there today who basically wants a career has to basically click their heels and salute her, or they're going to pay a heavy price. And she clearly is trying to block this thing from start to finish.
And she's certainly not doing it without orders.
No, definitely.
Let's go to that issue. The president himself, now after having stood up for James Comey for a couple of days, has changed course, altered his strategy, and is now attacking him and the validity, the foundation of the very investigations that are being undertaken by the FBI.
I'm shocked by it, but I'm getting to a point where nothing shocks me with this administration. It is a very political Justice Department, and I think to a certain extent, Lynch, following her predecessor, who was probably the most political attorney general I ever saw.
Well, she's trying to keep up.
She's trying to keep up, and I think to a certain extent, it's doing a great injustice to the country. This is a very critical time for us. We're about to pick a new leader of this country, and every effort should be made to get the truth out before the election on Tuesday.
I couldn't agree with you more. I also can't help but worry as the Republican Party of Florida is preparing to file a lawsuit because of voter fraud in Florida. I can't help but be concerned when I find out a federal district court judge in New Jersey has intervened against the Republican Party and has ignored the fact that the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, has lost 3 of its top leaders. They had to resign in disgrace, one of which, by the way, took the chairmanship of none other than Hillary Clinton's campaign. And the interim director handed over to Hillary Clinton 2 questions in advance of town hall meetings and debates.
Well, my sense, if you're going to cheat on debate questions, you're going to cheat on everything. And that's obviously the...
Well, there are 2 cheaters here.
Right.
Well, there are actually 3. The person who gave that from CNN, one would think, or associated with CNN. 2, Donna Brazile, the interim head of the DNC. And then the 3rd person would be none other than Hillary Clinton herself.
The truth of the matter, in a sense of fairness, you would always say, thank you very much. I don't want the question. I'm more than prepared to stand up there. But obviously, she took it not once, but she took it twice. It was part of her preparation. You don't know what else she got. But just the character of the person, I think, is laid out here in the sense that she did take it and she used it.
Ed Rollins, as always.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
Stay with us. We have a very busy news hour. Lots of breaking developments on the Clinton email scandal, the Clinton Foundation scandal, and oh yes, there is a race for the presidency underway. We're coming right back with the latest on that next. Stay with us. In the FBI investigation, investigators are now, as I said to you at the outset, 99% sure that as many as 5 foreign intelligence agencies were able to hack into the Clinton email server and did put national security in jeopardy. That, according to FBI sources, a direct contradiction, of course, of President Obama's assertion to CBS News just last October. We're going to have that for you here in just a moment, as we are now joined by former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, American Enterprise Institute Senior Fellow John Bolton, also Fox News contributor. John, this is absolutely stunning stuff. If it is not, if there's any question before, if there were any question before, that this has not risen to the level of a Watergate, I would have to think that most of that has been suspended, those doubts.
Well, it's truly incredible, and today has been a very important day. Let's just start with the business of being 99% certain that Foreign Services hacked Hillary's computer. I think that is the sort of evidence that demonstrates gross negligence, which is all the statute requires when you've got proof of harm to American national security interests. And it ties into one other thing that Comey said in his July press conference, when he said they couldn't tell whether Foreign Services had hacked Hillary's computer, but given the nature of the services involved, they didn't expect to, meaning that they were so sophisticated they did not leave cyber fingerprints behind. That's how good they are. All right, now compare that to the hack of the DNC computer and Podesta's email, which the Obama administration is dead certain was caused by the Russians.
Yeah, by the way, it's not just the administration, but 17 agencies signed on to that as well to show, to me, and all that demonstrates is the politicization of this administration and, frighteningly, many of our intelligence agencies.
Yeah, look, this is called potentially a false flag operation, that a foreign service would leave evidence behind pointing at the direction of the Russians. Yes, exactly. I just want to be sure that the Russian agency that hacked Hillary's computer was the smart Russian intelligence agency, but the ones that hacked the DNC and Podesta were the dumb Russian intelligence agencies. Am I right?
I think that would be, you would have the premise of a paper on that. I would not want to affix my name to it, but I understand your point. Because right now the dumb people are the people in the national liberal media who've been buying this claptrap that has been spewed by this administration and the Clinton cartel for years. And there is a day of reckoning at hand, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think your analogy to Watergate really comes close to home with one exception. We have not yet had a Saturday night massacre. And this, I think, is how James Comey, who has botched this thing beyond imagination by limiting the investigation on the national security front, by holding the July press conference, one thing after another. Here's how he can recover. He should go to the president and say, in effect, back me or sack me. In other words, let my FBI agents conduct the investigation of the Clinton Foundation, let them reopen the investigation of the national security aspects, and leave them alone. And if you don't trust me to be in charge of that investigation, Mr. President, after what you said about me today, then fire me right now.
I would tender a counter proposal, if I may, supplemental proposal. And that is that he stay exactly where he is, commit to the American people. He's going to find out everything he can, and every one of his investigators can, and as expeditiously and quickly and surely as he can. Because his agents need to be protected, because Loretta Lynch has made it clear that she will roll over them without hesitation. It is clear that not only has the Justice Department been politicized, it has been outright corrupted if they will obstruct justice, and that is precisely what they've done for a year, whether it is the public corruption investigation into the Clinton Foundation or whether it is the email scandal itself. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I'll just take it and do it one level further. I think Comey should say in a letter to the president that he intends to do what the Justice Department really should do, which is pursue justice without fear or favor.
Amen.
And that includes looking at the president's email to Hillary Clinton, which he used a pseudonym to cover his identity. He used private email channels, communicated with her private email channels. This investigation could go right up to the top. And if the president's dissatisfied with that, let him fire Comey. That will tell us really what the president's intention is here.
Well, the good news is he can't actually fire Comey with his appointment. And the great thing is,
he can try. He can argue for. He's got cause that Comey's behaved incompetently. So let's have it out, Comey. This is how you redeem yourself.
You know, what I have to say is, I think that in concert, in cooperation, in full consideration, you and I put forward some ideas worth at least listening to over at FBI headquarters. And thank you for proffering same, Counselor. Ambassador John Bolton, we thank you.
Anytime, Lou.
Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. The question is, does the absence of a grand jury suggest the Justice Department and FBI are not fully committed to a full investigation of the email scandal and Clinton Foundation? We'd like to know what you think. Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight. On Wall Street, stocks closing lower. The Dow down 77 points. The S&P lost 14. The Nasdaq down 48. Volume on the big board, 4.2 billion shares, the highest volume in a few weeks. The Federal Reserve today left interest rates unchanged, no surprise there, while sending new hints of an interest rate hike possibility next month. Not much of a surprise there either. The ADP jobs report showed the private sector added only 147,000 jobs last month, the fewest in 5 months, strongly suggesting a weak jobs report from the Labor Department this Friday. We'll see. And Moody's today warning the United Kingdom that Moody's will cut its credit rating if Brexit leads to a bad trade deal with the European Union, and for some reason the European Union does not trade with the UK. That is pure politics, and it is sordid at its best, Moody's. Think about it. Say you're ashamed and take it back. And the New York Times reporting a 96% drop in quarterly profits as ad buys dried up. There are a lot of reasons for that. There are consequences, it turns out sometimes, right? A few thoughts now on the Clinton cartel and Washington culture of corruption. Both came together on the tarmac in Phoenix in the persons of former President Bill Clinton and Attorney General Loretta Lynch when they met surreptitiously aboard her aircraft on the 27th of June. They talked for more than a half hour. And the result, as we learned from the FBI director himself more than a week later, no prosecution of Hillary Clinton despite compelling evidence to support such prosecution. Now we know so much more, especially about the close ties between the Clinton campaign and the Obama White House and the obviously politicized Obama Justice Department. And because of WikiLeaks, as with so much of this sordid story of corruption, we've learned more about one particular DOJ official, one that the Attorney General had the gall to put front and center in the faces of Congress and without shame before the American people, despite his compromised and conflicted friendship with the chairman of the Hillary Clinton campaign, John Podesta. Assistant AG Peter Kadzik emailed Podesta a heads up in May of 2015 warning lawmakers might question witnesses about Clinton's emails. That email sent from Kadzik's private Gmail account. Kadzik also was the one who notified Congress earlier this week that the DOJ will cooperate in the reopened Clinton probe. Isn't that nice of them? He wrote this, quote, "We assure you that the department will continue to work closely with the FBI and together dedicate all necessary resources and take appropriate steps as expeditiously as possible." We know that that is pure rank claptrap as well, because we have now a year's evidence of slow going on the part of the Justice Department to impede the investigation of both the Clinton Foundation and the Clinton email scandal. And now President Obama breaking his silence on the reopened investigation.
When there are investigations, we don't operate on innuendo. We don't operate on incomplete information. We don't operate on leaks. We operate based on concrete decisions that are made.
Well, one concrete decision was made at Justice, certainly, and perhaps higher, not to pursue these investigations. But the WikiLeaks emails reveal a close relationship between Podesta and Kadzyk, the two men exchanging birthday messages, invitations, including dinner at Podesta's home during the initial Clinton investigation. Kadzyk and Podesta are pals who've worked together. They went to school together. They're friends. Nothing wrong with that. Podesta writing of Kadzyk in a 2008 email, quote, "Fantastic lawyer, kept me out of jail." Of course, Kadzyk represented Podesta back in 1998 over his role in helping Monica Lewinsky, yes, that Monica Lewinsky, get a job at the United Nations. Kadzyk also an attorney for Mark Rich, who was granted a pardon by then-President Bill Clinton. And Kadzyk's biography on the Justice Department website notes he led the successful effort to confirm one Loretta Lynch. Both the Clinton cartel and the Obama White House are exemplars, in my opinion, of the corruption of judgment that has overwhelmed nearly all of Washington and a sizable part of our public institutions. We have to end it. We have to reverse and find the courage to take on the very real demons that are controlling too much of our nation. In my opinion, Donald Trump is the only one who can begin the long, difficult, even wrenching work of draining the Washington swamp. Our quotation of the evening on the difficult work to be done, the sacrifices we will have to make if we're to restore the wealth and opportunity we've allowed to be squandered by both political parties, the lobbyists, and those we've elected. The noble work to be done if we're to save our nation, our values, and generations of free Americans from the corruption that permeates, indeed, nearly all of Washington. Our quotation is from Theodore Roosevelt, who said this, quote, "Great thoughts speak only to the thoughtful mind, but great actions speak to all mankind." Let's pray we still have the freedom to act. We're coming right back. The House Freedom Caucus today met to talk about Paul Ryan's future as Speaker. Politico reports that members of the caucus decided to talk about asking for a slot in the House leadership in exchange for backing Ryan for another term as Speaker. Now, I call that yellow dog politics. The leadership position would reportedly be low on the pecking order, but still would be the first time a House Freedom Caucus member became part of the leadership. You know, that's the leadership that has been fighting the party's nominee. That's the leadership that is lined up with the Obama White House. That's the leadership that is, I think, about as mediocre and inept as one could imagine. The leadership elections, if you're interested, are slated for November 15th. Well, joining me now, Randy Evans, a member of the RNC Rules Committee, chairman of the Republican National Lawyers Association, former senior advisor for the Newt Gingrich presidential campaign of 2012. Good to have you with us. Charlie Spees, former election law counsel for the RNC and CFO for Romney's 2008 presidential campaign. Both great Americans. Good to have you here. Let's start.
Good to be here.
Let's start, Charlie, with this decision on the part of a district court judge, a federal district court judge in New Jersey, to turn over emails, everything pertaining to the Republican Party's, what would you call it, monitoring, to the Democrats. What the heck was that?
Okay, so this stems from a 1981 consent decree that the Democrats every 4 years...
So 35 years fresh.
Right. Every 4 years, they try to intimidate Republicans from doing any sort of election monitoring.
Well, it must work or they wouldn't keep trying.
Well, they get sympathetic... one sympathetic judge in New Jersey who is willing to enforce this.
So what you going to do with this this fellow who's acting like an operative of the Democratic Party instead of a federal judge?
I think the facts are on the Republican side. The consent decree doesn't apply to Donald Trump. It doesn't apply to state parties. As long as the Republican National Committee can show they weren't involved, then
so is everything
appeal this.
Everything good?
They're good?
Everything good?
I can't predict what these judges do.
Randy, is everything good? You need help here.
Everything's absolutely good. I talked to John Ryder, the general counsel to the Republican National Committee. We walked through the facts. There's nothing to it. It's based on somebody they found in Nevada who didn't know what they were actually responding to, and otherwise, you have the cleanest RNC record ever simply because an expiration date was finally set on this order. It is set to expire late next year. Yeah. And so the net effect was we on the RNC said, don't even come close to the line. Don't take any risk whatsoever. Yeah. And so there's not going to be anything to it.
All right, let's turn to what we were watching unfold. And Charlie, this has got to be of great concern to you because right now we have learned through WikiLeaks, the great reporting of the Wall Street Journal, and some other sources, including FBI sources primarily, that this is one of the most corrupt administrations since, in my opinion, since Nixon. That the Clinton cartel is the most pervasive and corrupt to persist and survive over almost 3 decades. Why would you or anyone else have risked putting her into the White House? And what kind of sense of responsibility do you feel if she were to win?
I agree with you. The problem here is the Obama Justice Department and Eric Holder moving to Loretta Lynch and the way they've tried to prejudge their friend Hillary Clinton. Right. Totally unacceptable. And it goes up to the top when President Obama...
They're corrupt, are they not? Can those words flow from the lips of of folks who live in the nation's swamp, that is Washington, D.C.? This is corruption. This is not the American way.
I've said they're the most corrupt Justice Department in history. I've said that for a long time.
Then we're an absolute... Do we think it goes higher?
At least unintentionally, when President Obama said that there was no national security risk, that sent a message to the FBI and the DOJ.
Randy, your thoughts on the extent of this corruption? And by that, I'm talking about the Clinton cartel, its foundation, its operations. It's exhaustive and pervasive corruption that has gone on unchecked for years, and largely because over the last almost 8 years of this administration's passivity, if not complicity.
Lou, my grandmother had a great saying. She said, a zebra can't change its stripes, and here a Clinton can't change their pattern of corruption. From the first Clinton presidency to the one that might come about, I don't believe it'll come about, we're going to have a pattern of corruption that just extends on and on. The fact is, it's like a cancer. Corruption just spreads. And the only way you can get rid of it is to actually cut it out. You can't just hope it'll go away, it'll shrink on its own, or that it won't expand. And you've seen it expand. You've seen it expand to rigging a primary. You've seen it expand all the way to rigging an FBI investigation. It will rig everything, and that's what we're seeing.
Do you both agree with me that we would not be here if it were not for the candidacy of Donald Trump, who has promised to drain the swamp, who has promised to take on the establishment? Because this corruption, it seeps into both parties, and in some, it animates them in some cases. What do you think?
I think that's the perfect closing message for Donald Trump. I love the message. I hope he can stay with it. I do think that the Clinton problems, their corruption goes way earlier than Donald Trump.
Well, I would hope so. I don't even know what relationship they would have to Donald Trump.
Well, they were at the wedding together. I mean,
oh, for Christ's sake. Charlie, I'll let you get off on that question. I'll bring it to you. If hell breaks loose and she wins, it's on your head, it's on Romney's head, and all the folks who took on the position that you just have expressed. Randy Evans, you get the last word.
Well, all I was just going to say is that we have no reason to. I would challenge the Clinton campaign to tell us something that they've done that wasn't corrupt. Just pick one. Tell us something you've done that wasn't corrupt.
While we wait for that, Randy, we're going to have to go to a commercial break to make sure we're here for the answer. Randy Evans, Charlie Speeds, thank you both. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, Donald Trump feeling confident about his chances in critical battleground states tonight.
We're up in Iowa. We're up in North Carolina. I think we're doing great in Pennsylvania, from what I hear.
I'll be talking about Trump's rising fortunes with Tony Sayegh and Katrina Pearson here next. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Well, joining me now, I've just been joined by two folks with big smiles on their faces. Trump campaign national spokeswoman Katrina Pearson, Republican campaign strategist Tony Sayegh. He's also a Fox News contributor. And I know for a fact that part of the reason for your bright smile tonight, you're always smiling, is what's happening in these battleground states. These polls are showing a reversal of enthusiasm, a reversal of commitment to vote and selection of candidate.
Well, absolutely. You know, 2 weeks ago on the mainstream networks, they were talking about the polls and basically writing off the Trump campaign. And I had to remind them that Mr. Trump has been able to close bigger gaps than this in less than a week. On top of the WikiLeaks information, on top of the Obamacare revelations, people are naturally going back to what they've always done. They're looking at the economy and they're looking at health care.
Which states are most impressive to you right now?
I think right now the movement in Virginia, the movement in Colorado, the movement in Michigan, I think is all very promising.
You think he's going to win in those states?
I think he could. You know, I've said from day one, even on this show, he's going to win in November, and I think he's going to win big.
All right. Tony?
I think he's locked in Ohio, Florida, Nevada, and it looks like even North Carolina right now. Those were the most important for him to do early as far as getting the momentum on his side. That's established, Lou. But to Katrina's point, where is Hillary Clinton going? Where are her surrogates going? They're going to Michigan. They're going to Wisconsin. They're going to Pennsylvania. Reliably Democratic states for most of the last 4 decades. And it's because Donald Trump's populist message, particularly on economic issues, resonate with non-traditional Republican voting blocs in those states in particular.
And I certainly am no clairvoyant, nor am I a seer, but it looks to me that people are just getting sick to death of the corruption that is being revealed, whether it be WikiLeaks, the Wall Street Journal, the FBI, whatever it may be. All we see is more corruption within the Clinton cartel, which includes the foundation, which includes her State Department and her campaign now, and the Obama administration's highly politicized Justice Department. It is now a responsible question, not just a fair question, to ask how high does it go in the Obama administration.
Well, I think that's exactly why you see the president continuing to be out there publicly attaching himself to her, because I think they go down together. What we find out today is, you know, we have a sitting United States president that is actively campaigning for someone who's under criminal investigation by the FBI. And his vice president
as well.
And not even just the investigation. This is beyond emails now. We are now talking about public corruption within the Clinton Foundation. Mr. Trump called it in the primaries. He called her Crooked Hillary because everything that's been going on with this foundation has been corrupt.
Public corruption and mishandling of classified information. If she is found guilty, Lou, on even one of those charges, she by law is disqualified from holding public office. So while she rhetorically uses the term not qualified, she literally is the one who potentially by legal definition could be disqualified from being the president of the United States.
It looks to me like there's a very high likelihood that she will be headed toward federal court to answer for herself and her actions. But the court of public opinion right now, I think, is making it very clear that they are tired of her corruption. They are tired of the excuses and the lies, and that they are turning to the guy who's saying, drain the swamp. He doesn't add the word I would have.
And it's a message he should stick to, and is working extraordinarily effectively. 2 things happened in the last week. One on a policy failure of Obamacare, the other on an honesty and trustworthy measure, a character measure, Hillary Clinton's FBI investigation being reopened, and the American people don't need us to tell them what to think about that. They know what's wrong with that.
And as I've always said about the Trump candidacy, it's sure nice to hear a guy who's interested in the Oval Office saying we and us instead of I, me, first person singular all day long.
America first.
You got it. Thanks so much.
Great to be here.
Sounds like a plan. America first. It's got a ring to it, right, Tony?
Absolutely, Lou.
Katrina, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, sir.
Up next, Donald Trump says the last thing this country needs is a crooked president in the White House. Pastor Darrell Scott joins me here next. We take up the issue of, is there a possibility we can rip corruption from our midst, recover our capital? Wouldn't it be nice? Pastor Darrell Scott joins me next. In our online poll last night here, we asked you, do you believe Donald Trump is the only one who will actually drain the swamp? 96% of you said yes. 96%. Well, joining me now, senior pastor of the New Spirit Revival Center, CEO of the National Diversity Coalition for Trump, Pastor Darrell Scott. Pastor, great to have you here. And we've just shared with you and the audience our highly scientific poll on the expected role for Donald Trump. Do you believe that that he is now in a position to take this thing home on November 8th?
I mean, he's in a very good position. I joked with him recently. I said, man, you have more lives than a cat. He's in a great position to bring this home. The American public has been educated in these last 2 weeks greater than at any other time in this campaign that the things that Donald Trump has been saying have been absolutely true, that there is a stench, there's a lot of corruption that's coming out of the Democratic Party that's infiltrated the highest levels of government in America, and he's going to be that agent of change.
You know what's interesting about, to me at least, in part, the vision to take on and to really criticize is the culture of corruption in Washington, D.C. He's